what those of us who are here right now should do, especially people with extra special titles, they should be doing right now in real time. And so I don't want people to forget, because I don't want to just make this about platitudes. I want you to understand that Bloody Sunday was real, and it is real recent history, meaning that there are still elders walking right now in our communities who actually were, they still here. They doing that. If they walking, I mean, they still here, duh. But they live this thing. It's not somewhere in the past. It's recent, right? It is recent. And that, yeah, I mean, it's just, and then the Gen X, my generation, was just being born in the late 60s or into the early 70s. So this ain't ancient history. This is history right now. Let's put up with the MLK Center. Today, the first Sunday in March, we commemorate Bloody Sunday, a momentous day in the civil rights movement. On Sunday, March the 7th, 1965, nonviolent marchers led by John Lewis and Hosea Williams were beaten and attacked by state troopers. This is real. This is real recent. And Congressman Lewis recalled that day. Take a look.
A man by the name of John Cloud identified himself and said, "I'm Major John Cloud of the Alabama State Troopers."
It's detrimental to your safety to continue this march, and I'm saying that
this is an unlawful march, will not be allowed to continue.
You are ordered to disperse, go home, or go to your church.
I said, "Major, may I have a word?" He said, "There will be no word." You saw these men putting on their gas masks. He said, "Troopers, advance."
Troopers here, advance.
They came toward us, beating us with nightsticks, trampling us with horses, releasing tear gas.
Those words of Congressman John Lewis. Now, he's no longer here with us, but he's already done his job. Now it's time for us to do ours in his memory and the memories, again, of so many others whose names we do not know. Now, put up this headline: nearly a third of Americans were alive during Jim Crow. Nearly a third of Americans were alive during Jim Crow. Again, yet another reminder that none of this is ancient history. The reality is, when it comes to civil rights, history is repeating itself, and it is a continuation of the fight. We cannot look past the horrors of Bloody Sunday like it is an ancient relic, because it is not. Because there are people with power in this very moment. So, Professor, we only have a few more minutes in show right now. I want to give you some time to formulate your final thoughts on this right here.
I think that in America, regardless of what side of the bipartisan beef you call yourself to be on, we like to use what I call the trick of time. Well, what Dr. Calvin Warren called a trick of time. Acknowledging that a third of Americans was alive during, Jim Crow, and acknowledging how when individuals and this in 2023 talk about Jim Crow, we're told that we're going too far in the past. You're not told you're going too far in the past when you want to celebrate popping firecrackers and eating barbecue for July the 4th. Now, me going and talk about the 1840s or the 1850s, I'm told I'm being a victim and I'm going too far in the past. But you're able to feel inspired and empowered by saying, "Give me liberty or give me death," and that happened well before the time you tell me it's going too far in the past.
It did. So we're gonna
go. That's it.
Yeah, no, we're gonna continue this. This is to be continued, because I talk about these kind of issues on the show all the time. So we will do that. Well, that is our show for today. We are so incredibly honored to have had Professor Conscious Lee on our show. We will have him back. Thank you all so much for watching us today. And you know exactly what I want you to do about this time. I want you to keep the faith, and I want you to keep the fight. Until next time.
Welcome to the Watch. It's on Monday, the best damn day of the week. I think you guys have figured that out by now. If you haven't, it's okay. You can be catching on soon. I'm Jayar Jackson. Glad to see you guys here on the live edition of the show. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, you guys, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Like it right now just below us. You know these things help us out. So as we embark on this, the best damn day of the week, I have an extra reason why it is. Here, watch this.
Do you want a vehicle you can take to pick up the juice? A truck with a track record to get you home safe even if the cops are on your tail. Ford Bronco. Get loose.
Jessica Burbank joins me on the show. She's a TYT contributor and analyst, and apparently a commercial ad maker. If you haven't bought your Ford Bronco yet and you want to get loose, do so. I have nothing else to say about the content of that ad.
Jared loves surprising me with my TikToks. I love my Bronco. I really do.
You make it easy, Burbank. The TikToks are available. I don't know, everyone that likes to follow and see good content. Not only is it sometimes fun and funny, but it's also informative. You might learn a thing or two, and you also will be entertained at the same time. Last fun fact before we get into all these stories of the day. Burbank and I have the same damn truck.
It's true.
Who knew? The Ford Bronco, it appeals to all different shapes, sizes, genders, and ends of the country. So just keep that in mind as we go into these next things. Check out that video as many times as possible because there's lots of what do they call them? Easter eggs in that ad. All done by Burbank here. Let's go ahead and get started though, you guys. There's stuff that was actually going on over the weekend. It was angering. Maybe it was even fun and funny, but definitely at many times it was pretty fascist. The CPAC convention happened over the weekend and Donald Trump headlined it. He had a lot to say. You can imagine. Let's go here.
And if you put me back in the White House, their reign is over. Their reign will be over. And they know it. And America will be a free nation once again. We're not a free nation right now. We don't have free press. We don't have free anything. In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
Donald Trump is your warrior. He is your justice and he is your retribution. Not yours. If you're watching this and you actually care about yourself or this country, he's talking about the people that want to commit crime. He's talking about people who are violent. He's talking about people who are fascist loving supporters. And for everything he says that has to do with coming from political enemies, they cheer like crazy. Again, he's your warrior. He's a seeker of justice. And also he's your retribution. You have to ask yourself, who is all those folks against? No, it's against fellow Americans. So as those folks cheered their asses off in the audience as he was talking and upped his rhetoric to the next level since he wants to get back into the White House, I would assume many of those folks would call themselves Christian-loving MAGA patriots. I grew up in the church. I remember there's scriptures like this one that maybe they forgot. Let's keep that vengeance thing in our head. Romans chapter 12, verses 19 through 21 says, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it's mine to avenge. I will repay." That part is in quotes because that's God talking. On the contrary, quote, "If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." It's weird because then they cheered their asses off when he said the exact opposite. Or they think Donald Trump is their savior. I've been saying that for months. I think that just might be the case. There's other moments that happen throughout this whole thing, though. As he then decided to joke from the next step from the fascism to the jokes. But first, Burbank, we've got this situation here, and we've heard this type of rhetoric. And every time anyone that's in opposition to the way these things happen, they go, "You guys are hyperventilating. Look at you overreacting to this. It was a joke." Who knows which one of these BS excuses they're gonna roll out next? Or it'll just be, "You're right. We're the fascist party." What's the thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that his selling point is like, if you're mad, if you're sad, if you're angry, if you're confused, I'm your guy. Without even saying, like, what are we angry at? What are we going to do about it? Like, that's what needs to be filled in here. And I think because he's increasingly speaking in vague terms, it's something he's always done. But here it's even more vague, not even saying what we're angry about in this speech. He can kind of skirt any accountability. And that's something he's always done. And it seems that he's gonna keep playing the same playbook.
And I guess apparently it's worked this long. But I mean, I saw people retweeting this, many of the conservative ilks, of course, other folks were as well. But the people who retweeted it then going, "Yeah, stick it to them." The question is never asked, what does that look like? Which there'll be more aspects from CPAC that you may ask yourself. So these declarations and proclamations and promises these folks are making that they're gonna do once they're in any kind of level of power, what does that look like? And who is it against? How would that work? What part does the MAGA Patriot Army foot soldiers have to play in it? They'll figure that out themselves. Maybe it has something to do with the legal issues. It's something else that he touched on as well too, but it was fun when it comes to talking about this. Watch.
People said to me, "Are you sure you want to do it, sir?" I said, "Oh, this will be so amazing." What the hell did you get me into? I didn't know the word subpoena. I didn't know the word grand jury, those words, grand jury. I didn't know that they want to lynch you for doing nothing wrong. I didn't know they want to lynch you for doing a great job. I didn't know they want to put you away because your poll numbers are better than anybody they've seen in years.
So obviously the tongue-in-cheek response of, "You guys got me into this. I'd never seen subpoenas or grand juries." You're probably close to it with all your other business dealings you have throughout your life. But let's joke about all of his legal issues because again, that's what I guess in assuming I can get away with anything. I am this dictatorial aspiring leader of the country, which he's back on this same thing over and over and over again. But the cheers still rain down. I'm not sure if they're really listening to what he's saying, but I had thoughts about the lynching. I'm gonna let you come back into this before I go there though.
Yeah, I mean, subpoena, that's a big word for Elmo. He gets his monthly vocabulary list from Merrick Garland, so he can learn the legal terms we use in this country. My favorite part of this clip is actually the Trump gold coins coming in as an ad to the side of him. I think if he gets elected to public office, we're gonna have to smelt all of the existing gold in Fort Knox into Trump gold coins. And he's gonna probably convert us from a fiat currency back to a gold-backed currency, and we're gonna just have to spend trillions. on smelting some Donald Trump gold coins.
You know what sucks is that whole side ad came in, and I kind of didn't notice it because I've seen it so many times. It's just part of the programming, which I'm not sure if that's helpful or not. To I believe it was Newsmax that was running these ads during his speech, because who cares about what he's saying? Let's sell something at the same time. But he did mention lynching. My last thoughts on this: he did mention lynching. Who knew that they'd get lynched for this and lynched for this and lynched for that? Again, this is the same narrative that continues down the same road, because we talked about a legislator last week who was trying to bring back lynching as a manner of death, public execution, as a way to deter folks from crime. But of course, remembering our ugly history with lynching in this country and the types of folks that we did lynch and celebrate and carry picnics out and all that stuff around folks as they were murdered in public. Let's just joke about it, because who cares? Nobody really needs to think about these things. It's just our history that we're not telling anyone about. The disgusting nature of this was over the top for the entire weekend. And so during middle of his speech, though, someone had to finally break in and give someone a small bit of a break. Let's go to this next story.
Perverts who use the names of Washington and Lincoln to buy millions of dollars in ads to say bad, libelous, and incorrect things about us.
USA, 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 USA.
Donald Trump was in the middle of his laundry list of fascist moves that he's planning if he gets his ass back in power. But as one person described, there was someone blasting hip hop music in the background and interrupted his speech, which, forced MAGA to start chanting. They described it as blasting hip hop music. But from the perspective of the person that was blasting said music, it was a little bit more specific. Watch from his point of view.
People that love our country, people that love our country are celebrating that issue. Perverts who use the name.
Let's go. Right now. Right now. Let's go. Stop right here.
The gentleman on Instagram known as Subway DJ was blasting F Donald Trump. And, of course, there was folks in the audience that were very appalled. I wish you could have a couple freeze frames on it. They were like looking up like, how dare he do this to us? And then once security then got him outside of the room, though, of course, they had to walk him out. And I want you guys to notice, he came in and you could hear it. He wasn't right next to the stage. The sound of the speakers definitely made it up to Donald Trump's ears because of the full size of this speaker system that he brought in. Watch this. Watch as they walk him out and the last cop holding what he was using. So apparently at CPAC, if you walk in with a dolly with an entire speaker system strapped to the back of it, you won't be noticed. You'll walk right into the main venue. When the headline speaker, former president of the United States, is speaking, you can blast music and they'll not know how you got in here. That's the first question I wondered, first of all, Jess. And number two, who is Subway DJ? He's over on Instagram. I found him. Hope I did find the right guy. This is what some folks directed me towards. And apparently he finds himself on spots in New York, out in the streets, in the subway. And I'm not sure how set up it is, but I saw a few of his videos and people are always following him dancing like it's the Pied Piper, but they're always having a good time. And he's generally getting kicked out of those spaces because of sound ordinances and all that stuff. But first, your thoughts on this, Jess, because you can almost expect this almost at a Trump speech now. And at this point, is it a little bit too immature?
I don't know about that. I think what shocks me in this video is that whenever something disruptive happens or whenever the mic cuts out or the music cuts out, when things go wrong at a Donald Trump rally, they all know time to start chanting USA. And in unison, they're all like, all right, that's what time it is. We all have to do this now. I know Donald Trump has heard this song before. It's such a popular song, the F Donald Trump song. And I really wonder how he feels about it. But I don't know, is this effective? Is it effective to disrupt a Trump rally? I think it is, just to show these people that I'm sure live in a vacuum of yes men who are like, of course, Donald Trump, or people who don't want to be bothered to argue with their family members who are Trump supporters. They might not hear a dissenting opinion very often. And so this is a relatively peaceful, kind of funny way to do it. But the fact that he walked in with a speaker, I mean, maybe they just look away at anyone who looks like they might be the help at the event. They just let them do their thing.
Possibly. I mean, I was trying to figure out, I said, there's got to be permits or something for him to get in here with this. He didn't roll in with it in a backpack hidden. It's a full, probably 3-4 foot tall speaker that he rolled in there with. But as I was watching this, I was thinking though, I said, Donald Trump had the headlining events. Many other people didn't show up though. And before we get out of this whole thing with CPAC, at least Donald Trump's aspect of it, did they forget or did they not want to mention, the organizer of CPAC, the head of CPAC, Matt Schlapp, the reasons why many conservatives didn't show up, because he's got some allegations on against him from one staffer that worked with Herschel Walker's campaign, sexual harassment and even assault. I'm not sure if he pushed it that far, but the things that he was suggesting, yes, that was happening at that same CPAC when they're talking about how great they are. I don't think they mentioned that part though. Just want to point that out for you guys. One more here, you guys, since we're talking CPAC. If you're at the event, you have to try and get as close to violence and talk of eradication of a certain group of folks as possible. Maybe you guys saw this. Let's go.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing. If transgenderism is true, if men really can become women, then it's true for everybody of all ages. If transgenderism is false, as it is, if men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. And if it's false, then we should not indulge it, especially since that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of so many people. If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every...
There's Michael Knowles, a talk show host, I suppose. He has those shows a lot of times with Ted Cruz. So at CPAC, he's talking about getting rid of transgenderism altogether, the eradication of it, and about how he mentioned multiple times, he says, if it's false, and then he inserts his opinion about how it is false. So the whole basis for this speech is, listen to me in my opinion, don't have your own thought. Again, at a conservative conference where they like to talk about freedom of thought and independent thinking. So he tells you what to think, and then after telling you what to think, he says you need to eradicate transgenderism. How does that happen? I asked it earlier when Donald Trump was declaring things. How is it that you eradicate transgenderism? Do you have any ideas, Burbank?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear. A bunch of people on Twitter were talking about this, being a genocidal threat. And there's all sorts of people analyzing whether or not the term fits and what have you. But at the end of the day, if you don't want them in public life, what's going to happen? Are you going to send them off as outcasts to live on an island? No, it's very clear what they want to do with transgender people living in the United States of America. And the point that he makes, saying, at any age, if a man can become a woman, that can happen at any age. And the reason he's saying that is because one of their biggest plans as a part of their anti-trans agenda is to prevent children from receiving puberty blockers, because there's a real scientific transition that happens once you get to a certain age where you go through puberty. And it's very difficult after that point to take hormones and then to show that you have more feminine or masculine features. And being able to block a person from going through puberty until they're sure they want to transition, that can be very helpful. Because if you have a child go through puberty and then later on try to transition, it can be much more difficult. And so that's the reason he's saying that. I don't think there's anything wrong with people living their lives as transgender, but I do think there is something wrong with people saying that their way of life and their traditional values are infringed upon by how other people live their lives. And that's really where we get to the point where people at CPAC and people who are on this extreme right in the United States are descending into fascism.
Well, and once people point it out, then the question has to then become, how does this happen? Because again, this is what he said in response, because of course, people came in and pointed out what this is that he's saying and asking what is it that he wants. Actually, they were pointing out what is it he wants. He did respond. He goes, I never said that, and I demand a retraction. This is after a Huffington Post employee then wrote, my dispatch from CPAC, Christopher Mathias, said, where a crowd just cheered for a speaker who called for trans people to be, quote, eradicated. The GOP's creepy obsession with kids getting gender-affirming care is morphing into explicitly fascist calls for trans folks to be erased, is what he pointed out and then linked to his piece there. So the difference now that he's trying to bounce back and forth with is I said the eradication of transgenderism, not the eradication of transgender people. So if there's transgender people who you said they're falsely who they say they are, what is it you do to eradicate transgenderism? Is something inside of them? Did you find a chip that was inserted when people took the COVID vaccine? What is it that would allow you to eradicate transgenderism from transgender people? How do you get it out of them? How do you get it away from them? Because also from public life. So if they're in public, what is it you do about them being here? I think all those people who are bloodthirsty and have already shown that they're willing to attack violently and look to kill folks that they are uncomfortable with will take that and run. But as a matter of fact, Alyssa Cordova, who works with him as well, decided to point out that they're gonna come legally for folks who did this. So she posted, we're demanding full retractions and apologies from Daily Beast, HuffPost, Rolling Stone for their false and libelous claims about Knowles, and have referred all of those to our general counsel. So she's showing all the headlines of them talking about his ideas for what to do about transgender folks, because he's uncomfortable with them. And who they say they are is different than who he says they are. So he has this authority over someone else's life and who they are and who they say they are and how they live. People he may not ever run into, but he's doing this for money. By the way, there's more going on though, because prior to this, he's talked about this before. Watch.
That I called to ban transgenderism entirely. I made the point that if you want women to have their own bathrooms, if you think women ought to be able to have their own locker rooms and not have to look at gigantic, gross men while little girls are getting changed, if you want any of those things, you have to ban transgenderism entirely. They said that I was calling for the extermination of transgender people. They said I was calling for a genocide against, I said, what? I must have missed that part of my show. When did I say that? I don't know how you could have a genocide of transgender people, because genocide refers to genes. It refers to genetics. It refers to biology. And the whole point of transgenderism is that it has nothing to do with biology. Transgender people is not a real ontological category.
They're not real people. So what exactly are you concerned about then? If they're not real people, we're talking about the origins of the word. You can't have a genocide. You can have a mass murder. Should we change the way that you're talking about this, since you haven't specifically talked about how you want to eradicate transgenderism from folks and all that? But he did mention this, Burbank. He said we can ban it entirely. How do you ban something like this? There's no good answer for it except for what everyone is saying that he's saying, except he's too much of an effing coward to say it.
I think we should put it in terms they can understand. What do you think people on the right in the United States would say if I were to pose something like, we need to get rid of Christianity? It's too often been the case that these people who are Christians are making laws about what women can do with their bodies. It seems demonic. You shouldn't be allowed to do something like that. So we need to eradicate Christianity. I'm not saying, Christian people can't live. I'm just saying they can't go to church, they can't read their Bible, they can't practice Christianity. Religion's not in your genes. So I'm not saying we need to do genocide, but we do need to eradicate Christianity. They would go absolutely nuts. They would say, yeah, what you're talking about is getting rid of us as a people, because Christianity is a part of my identity. It's a part of who I am as a person, which is exactly like people's gender identity. It's not exactly transferable, but it's a part of your identity. And these are terms that I think they can understand. We all have the right of freedom of expression. It's guaranteed in the Bill of Rights in our Constitution. People should be allowed to express themselves however they choose, so long as they're not hurting other people. He's clearly posing hurting other people by taking away their right to express themselves.
Let's flesh out the Christianity thing even further, because they always say that, the gays are spreading their way of life to everyone else. That's actually a big tenet of Christianity. You're supposed to be spreading the good word and try to convert as many people as possible. It's what you're supposed to do to bring more people to the glory of God. That's actually a part of it. So someone could say, hey, we need to eradicate this because it's spreading to people who maybe don't want to hear it, or then after they don't want to hear it, you start targeting them, because we do know the way that Christianity has been spread in the past, just in case you guys forgot that part. But also the ability to be able to go after folks like this and think about it this way. You want to make sure it's a battle scenario. This last graphic here, because this happened on Newsmax, and they want to point out look at this, the lower third here as they're talking. How we stop the transgender mafia. So if we have to eradicate transgenderism, and there's a transgender mafia somehow, whatever that looks like, there's all these types of terms and pictures in people's heads of this dangerous group that's coming to get you, and you have to fight back before they come and get your children. And the last ironic part is just look up a few of priests, youth pastors, big time pastors that have all under the umbrella of Christianity have raped and assaulted and destroyed so many children's lives. So if you're worried about lives of children and those folks coming for them from their place of power, check out the church. It's happening a lot. And as a matter of fact, real Christians don't want anything to do with those types of folks. It's just the fake ones. Let's take this first break, you guys. We come back, a few of your comments, but also after that, we've got Kari Lake. She had some declarations to make, quite obviously lying. We'll point that out. But also, even after that, as we go through the rest of this show, there's nicknames that are coming. They're coming down the pike for Ron DeSantis, because Donald Trump is just bored. Let's do that and a few of your comments when we come back.
Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff, good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
Let's
flamingo.
flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word.
Okay.
This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull.
Drink it, swallow it,
No.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Yeah, still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Dave. As you can probably see, Skype froze.
Yes.
Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Watch this, you guys, and we have a bit of a conflict in the TYT member section. Pay attention, Burbank. Boomer Dragon Cat says, as much as I like the Ford Bronco, I'll stick to my Jeep Willie. The Jeep Willie, like the one from 1968 or something like that? Because those are kind of dope. It's just, I hope you restored it correctly. It's the only reason why I'm on your side with that. But the new Ford Bronco Sport used to be Bronco 2. It's quite dope itself. It needs a lift and some bigger tires, but still. Once Upon, still on the Bronco talk, says, suddenly I want a Ford Bronco. Progressive Alaskan, I miss my 63 Bronco. Broncos rock, 100%. And Eileen, Woke Mind Virus Dragon says, that better be an EV Ford Bronco, Burbank. I don't know if they have that yet. It's coming.
No, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't, we looked. I also test drove the Mustang EV, the Mustang, what they call it. That thing is very expensive. It's nice, but it's very expensive. Therefore, I don't have one. Shy Coltrane 482 says, Jessica throwing down Hot Wheels. Again, you guys watch the video over and over again. There's many good nuggets in there. I think it's quite funny. Lastly, over on Twitch, Wheelie Snarky Dragon says, hiya JR and JB, saving my message for my favorite show. Happy Monday. You only get one message a day? I didn't know that. We have to free you up a little bit more. Speak freely on the watch list. We'll read them all. Just not yet. Let's go to this next story. We're still at CPAC, except we've got I guess a Trump wannabe there. Let's go.
Something happened to me this week before I left for CPAC, and it shows how desperate these people are to stop me and to silence you. I decided to share this. It's a little bit controversial, but I'm going to put this out. Somebody showed up at my door this week. They called me before and said, I got to talk to you in person. This can't be done over the phone, which is always kind of like, uh-oh, what's that going to be about? They came to my door and they tried to bribe me out of getting out of politics. Now, I'm going to be honest, at that very moment, I wanted to sick my dog on him. But I have a pug and it wasn't going to happen. So I said, you let your handlers back east know that I can't name a price because there is no price that I would sell out my country for.
Oh, Kari Lake, tough guy, talking about how someone came to her door. Who knows who that someone is? I can't talk to you on the phone, but I need to talk to you in person to bribe you out of politics. To bribe her out of politics. I want you guys to understand, usually when people get into politics, they've been bribed to get into politics so they can continue to help steal money from American people and act like they're doing something for them, specifically from the MAGA side of the whole thing. The amount of money that people like her are looking to make in power to continue to utilize the corrupt system to benefit themselves, I think it's a little bit more beneficial to be bribed into politics. But still, that's just my opinion. The second part about this is that she's obviously making this story up for her own benefit. In fact, she's practiced it enough that she says it on Charlie Kirk's show too. I'm sorry, there's more. I'm sorry, we're gonna get to that in a second. One more piece though, you guys, because she points out how true this story is. That's the lying part that I definitely noticed. Watch this.
It's really happened. I'm telling you this because this is how disgusting politics is. This really happened this week. Name your price. Not $1 million, not $10 million, not $100 million. I love you right back. And I said, are you kidding me? I walked away from a big job and a big salary. I'm not motivated by that stuff, guys. I'm not. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know. I'm just on God's time right now.
Oh God, it's like it's the most, all the basic cringy stereotypical lines about how great and important, you know how moral I am. They offered me $100 million, and I said no. You know why? Because I work for you guys. They're not buying this. They're really not buying this, are they? But just in case they are, now let's go to Charlie Kirk as she appeared there, still trying to push this message. Go.
And conversation went on, and as I finally moved this person kind of out of my house and said, I've got things to do, no thank you, it moved into, well, what do you want to make this happen? We want you out. There's some powerful people back east who really want you out. And I said, there is no price. There's no price that you could pay. So I wouldn't take 100, I wouldn't take $1 million, I wouldn't take 10 million, I wouldn't take 100 million.
Why do you have to throw all those numbers around, Kari? Didn't they give you a number? Or I'm sorry, they said name your price. That was the other part. So they tried to bribe you. They said name your price. They offered you $100 million, or was it 10 million, or maybe it was 100 billion. It doesn't matter because she's morally superior to everyone else, and she's here to do just that. But the last thing you should know, Burbank, is there's a true story. What are your thoughts, man?
I'm not buying it. And I don't believe somebody wants to buy Kari Lake. I mean, maybe some lobbyists. She raised $15 million in 2022. And that's a lot of money. $15 million. She had donations from medical contractors. She had donations from billionaires like Bloomberg. She raised a lot of money. Here's the thing. This was probably just a concerned neighbor who finds her a little bit annoying. And she's like, you know what? There's a story in here somewhere. I can just embellish this a little bit and make it work in my favor. Because that's what she does. She's a liar. The thing is, if someone's gonna pay you money to leave politics, you have to be someone who's a problem for the political establishment, the corporations in the United States of America, the status quo. Kari Lake is not any of those three things whatsoever. So I don't believe this story. She's just unpleasant to listen to. And I think maybe a neighbor came over and told her, can you stop? Like, this is embarrassing. Like, I have really bad secondhand embarrassment. Please exit public life.
I'm glad you said it this way. Let's go to that last graphic first. Jump down there first, and we'll come back up. From Clear to See, they tweeted out the same possibility of what happened when someone showed up at her door to bribe her out of politics. Maybe it was the Papa John's guy that showed up instead. But lastly, though, this is part of her whole push, because oddly, she did actually win the straw poll there at CPAC about being President Trump's vice presidential candidate. And she didn't actually turn that down. Maybe some more morality and principle. Let's look at what the Kari Lake War Room said and the reasons why she can't carry that out. She gets out of 30 contenders. Kari Lake wins the CPAC straw poll for vice president. We're flattered. But unfortunately, our legal team says the Constitution won't allow for her to serve as governor and vice president at the same time. I've got good news for the Kari Lake War Room. You don't have to worry about that because you're not serving as governor of Arizona. You're just complaining about it over and over and over again. There has to be some point when it ends. This would be a good moment actually to say, you know what? I'll take that vice presidential nomination. It's better than what you're dealing with now, which honestly isn't really in politics. Have you been elected? I don't think so, bro. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Shift gears to this next thing though. Since we're talking presidential politics, how about nicknames? Go.
Donald Trump is trying to vilify Jeb Bush and Paul Ryan. He says they're the portion of the party that he's trying to link Ron DeSantis to. He's also working on nickname Ron Dishonest, Ron De-Establishment, or Tiny D. I don't know. I mean, people are uncomfortable. It's hard to label somebody who's so similar to him.
Brian Kilmeade there rolling out a couple of the potential nicknames that Trump is floating for Ron DeSantis, his potential presidential primary opponent. And of course, you see the one that stuck out was Tiny D. It's a replay of 2015, 2016, you guys. Remember when Trump and I think it was Rubio both put their hands up and showed that they don't have a Tiny D? Apparently. Tiny D is back on the maps. So the best part about this, that Kilmeade was reading all these names and he pointed out how uncomfortable this was. He was definitely 100% uncomfortable with it. So he decided to change subjects here. Let's let him continue.
Or Tiny D. I don't know. I mean, people are uncomfortable. It's hard to label somebody who's so similar to him with a nickname. It makes everybody on all sides seemingly uncomfortable, even people reporting it.
Well, I'm just excited to see who the final nominees are going to be before the primaries.
Yeah, there's going to be such a battle.
It's about to rev up.
Stay tuned.
Okay, stay tuned because I would like to see this. No more talk about little D's. Did you notice also though, Burbank there? He not he did, but I want to call her Kayleigh McEnany. I'm blanking on her name. The woman there that's hosting with them, there was a snicker when he said little D. He's like, yeah, she thought it was funny too. Let's keep it real. They know where these lines are drawn, and they also know that things like that actually, and sadly, just might help him a little bit because people will start saying it and then it'll become a thing. Trumpers will start carrying signs. Who knows how this is gonna work? But there's one last part about this, because he refuted on February 12th this report from the New York Times that he was considering this other nickname, Meatball Ron. You guys heard about that. He's tested out other nicknames in Truth Social posts though. Ron DeSantis. And Sherry Tay from Business Insider points out that it's unclear exactly what that means. It's a shorter form of sanctimonious or whatever he was talking about before. Who knows? But the last question here though is, maybe it'll help with 10% of the voting block, but why is this a thing where he's floating things on Truth Social?
Yeah, that's hilarious. Instead of hiring campaign staff, his communications team is just his followers on Truth. It's a great way to get some free labor. The thing about the Tiny D nickname, why immediately after does he say, well, him and Trump are really similar, so why can you say that? He didn't say that about dishonest, but he did say that after Tiny D. So I want to know what he's thinking there. But it's true. Watching, Ron DeSantis run against Donald Trump is like watching if Larry David ran against Bernie Sanders for president. Like, do your best impersonation. Let's see who wins this thing.
Can you imagine if someone is a political opinion, who they're going to vote for is based off of whether or not you believe they have a tiny or a larger D?
And
what's her
that
name?
made them uncomfortable of everything at CPAC?
Marge stood up next to the cardboard cutout of Trump and grabbed the crotch. Remember that? This is normal political discourse now, you guys. This is the people who packed this house to listen to this guy speak. And he just might hopefully start calling Ron DeSantis Little D. I can't wait either. Let's go to this next story, you guys. Back in Los Angeles, the cameras follow Pete Davidson, even when he does things like this. That is the swanky neighborhood in Beverly Hills, Rodeo Drive even, in that intersection. As you see that large, big body Mercedes-Benz with flashing lights on, but tons of water spraying everywhere. The fire department has to come out and fix this fire hydrant problem because allegedly, apparently, Pete Davidson, former SNL actor, crashed first into the hydrant and then into the side of someone's house. Here's the damage from that house that he took a bit out of. I'm actually surprised it only got that much. They apparently said he was speeding, but there's probably some other kind of structural things potentially wrong here. This could probably become a big problem. Again, this is in Beverly Hills, bro. So also the spot where he hit the fire hydrant where all that water was coming from is now just a couple of cones. Hopefully no one injures themselves on that as well. But there was some other aspects of this that has people talking because apparently he was with his girlfriend, Chase Sweet Wonders, who maybe I'm out of the loop. I had no idea who she was, but she was also in the car as well. And this is the damage that his Mercedes took. Damn. I want to look up how much that car is because it's one of those ones that's got to be around 80 to 90K. Who knows what else he put on it? But still, the amazing part about this whole Burbank is how first there they are, off in Hawaii, being photographed by probably some paparazzi. And this is the same day that they then in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills area, showed back up in time to jump curbs, hit fire hydrants, and run into walls of other people's houses. So apparently there was a rush to get back to make sure this all happened. But the one thing I wonder is he's standing there talking to them. Were there any, they said there was no drug or alcohol involved. Was there any arrests made? Were there any detaining happening? Was someone trying to figure out what is he was doing and why? They did mention he was speeding. Is there a ticket for that? Is there something else that's gonna go on besides, hey bro, so you see that fire hydrant? I took that out and then I took out a piece of this house. I'm gonna go home and relax, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he hit the fire hydrant because he wanted to see a firefighter because he missed his dad. I didn't know that. But he should have pulled a Donald Trump. Donald Trump in his speech at CPAC was like, I didn't know you could get lynched for being a great leader. Pete should have been like, I didn't know you could get in trouble for driving a nice car and being with beautiful women and being super cool. But yeah, he was obviously driving recklessly. Like, this doesn't happen just because you're going a little bit fast.
I thought you were gonna. Yeah, no. I'm curious if he saw some of the. Sorry to interrupt you. Some of the insinuations that were happening here. They said he was in. Not they here, but I've read some of the things. He was in the car with his girlfriend. Drugs and alcohol were not involved. We don't know what was happening though. You know what? Pete Davidson has been reduced now to because of all the women he's dating, and people are like, oh, Pete Davidson is undefeated. No matter what he's doing, it turns into something sexual is happening with some woman in his car, in this room, and there and in that. And now there's just another one. Is that why they let him go? I'm still trying to figure out what it is that they figured out about why he did this. I'd like to know. I'm sure the person who owns that house with a hole in it would like to know.
They're like, oh, yeah, man, you know what? You're the man. Like, you're good. Don't worry about it. Forget about it. It's fine. But yeah, it's true. Pete is kind of reduced to that. But, you know, how many women throughout history were,
That's true.
How many women throughout history were sex symbols, and now we have this one guy who is. But I mean, I would be surprised, not really, if they were to keep dating, He's the type of guy that can just smash the heck out of his Mercedes Benz, and they'll be like, you know what, Pete, it's okay. You're just so charming. Don't worry about it.
Last question, since people like to ask this and wonder, and I saw this floating around because of the first thing people think of Pete Davidson now. What is the appeal, if you agree that it's such an appeal for Pete Davidson? Because we saw that picture and I saw you laugh at him. So I'm curious as to what it is about him.
Oh yeah, what is it about Pete Davidson? I would say it's the energy, the vibe, the like, I don't care. I'm just gonna say whatever I want to say. He doesn't try to appeal to like toxic masculinity whatsoever. And he's just like super comfortable in who he is as a person, and like is a nice, funny guy. I don't think it's like a big mystery as to why women want to be around him.
Well, because men think first and foremost, you have to be a 10. And since I guess many people assume that he's not upon first glance, then that's the problem. Maybe we have to get out of our own heads. And also, I saw you point out number one is toxic masculinity. If you want to reject it, then you will probably most likely be rejected as well. From one crash site to the next, listen, I'm gonna be, full disclosure, you guys. I've got two producers. Their names are Emily and Emilio. We had a meeting this morning, and I have negative thoughts about these particular folks who were involved in this particular incident, and to the point where I was like, I don't think I need to talk about them. But you know what? Some reason they got support. So now I'm gonna talk about how I disagree with their approach. Let's watch this. Another accident.
It got so quiet in here. How did I? I think we're fine. I think we got all the audio on there. Yeah, we're chilling. Everyone's good. Holy shit. Oh my God. What the fuck just happened, dude?
Outside my car. It'll be posted on my Instagram. November Romeo on YouTube. It'll be posted.
That was perfect. A couple of podcasters walk into a cafe and start shooting their podcast, only to be rammed almost in the back by this huge SUV that looked completely out of control. But once it didn't pulled away, I guess they just continued promoting themselves. But at least they got some content. Let's let them keep going.
We were trying to film an outro for the podcast episode, and this happens.
It got so quiet in here. How did I?
Oh! Walking down the street.
Oh my God, yeah. Are y'all serious?
What the?
Oh, it's leaking. There's no way. My friend Nathan and I were recording a podcast for his channel. And why did we get hit by a car? What the f? Because y'all, I was sitting right here. Someone ran their car at us.
As long as y'all aren't hurt, because the glass was like literally going into y'all.
Oh, really? It was going into us?
Yeah, the glass was up against y'all's back. Charles got like all over our table. Yeah,
were you one of the guys that were doing the podcast? Yeah. Are you okay? I think so. Where are you? Dang. Yeah, either cop.
We got the whole thing on the podcast in 4K video.
Are you guys beginning to notice my issue with this yet? An SUV, as they pointed out, apparently ran a red light, was clipped by another car as it was running, or maybe it clipped another car as it was running red light, lost control, smashed, oddly right behind these two. They were filming their podcast there. And the biggest response was, oh, maybe we can continue to film. I should grab a mic and point out how I just saw people almost run into me and run me over. This is fun. This is what's happened. It's time for me to just go ahead and differentiate between me being the old man and these, what are they now? What are the new folks called? Not millennials. They're now some other folks.
Gen Z.
Gen Zs, I guess. Who knows how old these folks are? But it turns into, how can I continue to film and talk about this? It took us damn near to the end of the second clip before someone says, are you guys okay? That's the first time, at least I saw someone ask that. Everything else is, we can get some video on this. Hey, maybe this will go viral. Hey, so me and my friend were standing here and there's a car in my back. Isn't that wild? It's wild. And actually, I don't want to see it. Let's keep it real. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I the bad guy here, Burbank?
I think Pete Davidson's the bad guy. Seems like he had a busy day in Beverly Hills. Here's the thing. Why were you filming a podcast in a public space in the first place? Why are you
I'm glad you're on my side. Sorry, continue.
Don't do that. Bottom line, lesson learned. Nobody should ever try and film a podcast in a cafe. The other thing about this, there are so many dudes who are doing podcasts now that statistically, if a car runs into a building, it's just gonna happen that they're filming a podcast. That's statistically how many dudes are trying to do podcasts now, which leads to my next question. Was it on purpose? I don't know.
It seemed like tinted windows. Maybe they didn't fully know, or maybe they didn't know who these particular folks were that were running it. But I guess to give the full scope of this, we did start the show with a Jessica Burbank video sporting her truck, almost like an ad. It's not a podcast, but it's definitely to profile what's going on. It's just the way these things work, right? I don't want to call you out, but let's keep it real, right? This is part of the life. I'm doing a show too. We're promoting what we're doing. We're talking about it. I get it. But at some point there has to be some reality where you go, I almost died, you guys. This sucks. What's going on? I feel like we're becoming numb to normal situations and things you should probably be getting the hell out of the way of. Just my small 2 cents.
They were like, how can we get more views from this?
That's the way these things work now. There's a lot going on. We have a couple minutes, you guys. I skipped through a lot of comments that I did actually want to get to, especially from everything that's going. And this one actually is going to get me started, you guys. Over on Twitch, I said I love you guys on Twitch, but Telly Panda says, JR is the bad guy, with musical instruments there. I'm not sure which song we're referring to. Or actually, what story I'm the bad guy about? Maybe this last one.
Nice.
Mind Grifter on this as well says the show must go on. And also Mojo Quit says, well, it got a lot less quiet in there, that's for sure. People definitely trying to figure out what it is that happened. And Mike Boy for Mayor agreeing with Burbank, don't record a podcast in a public place. Actually, it's probably a good, decent setup. I can understand that, but you probably got sound issues. Start in Park Racing says that's a badass window though. Also agreed as well. Let's jump back up to 2IT members. Lynn over on 2IT members says this story is as true as her claim. This is talking about Kari Lake. It's true as her claim that she won the election. It's one of those things. I'm still trying to figure out how this is going to benefit her. I haven't figured it out yet. Also, Bill's Dragons circles the wagons. Says Bill's Mafia is more dangerous to people's health than whatever the transgender mafia is. The same thing that they were talking about at the beginning. Also over on CPAC. Bill's Mafia throws people through tables, you guys. Also, Fidel Castor Oil says, pretty sure Kari's story is true and that the person was her husband. Probably trying to get her out of politics. He probably wants her to go off. And YouTube, you guys. Pop Tart Dragon says, stop with the pro Monday propaganda. JR, there's a reason why I do this though, you guys. It's tough, and Mondays are tough. But this is one of those things where it's just like any other day. Why should we approach this one badly? It starts your whole week off bad. You got to do it anyway. You're gonna get, if you're in the type of job where you work on Mondays, you got to get up. Why be down about it? It's your perspective. Started off positively. I tell my kid all the time. Also, Dragon Slayer Dragon says the dude that moved looked like he took a hit though in that last video of those guys in the cafe pushing their podcast. Now, a couple of TYT members that did super chats. Thank you guys for those. Meredith Putvin, Ralinga Dragon says the only time I had issues with someone in the women's bathroom, it was two cisgendered males in the women's restroom at Walmart. Actually, that reminds me, Burbank. We were talking about that earlier, and Michael Knowles said you're gonna have this big, hairy, disgusting man in the changing rooms with little girls. So we picture that scenario and people get scared and angry and violent, right? But even how often is it that you have full-grown ass women in the same changing room with little girls? Like in the gym, say, there's grown women there. I don't think there's any 10-year-olds in the gym changing and doing whatever on their own. I try to take my kid to the gym just so he can play basketball. They won't let anyone in under a certain age in the first place. So again, all these scenarios where they're cross-referencing men being in the changing room with women or girls, it can't happen. It doesn't happen even with the women and girls.
Also weird. Suddenly they care about violence against women committed by people who are men. They have not cared about that. Men do not need to dress up as women to assault women. They do it every day. And our legal system is not even treating it like it's a problem to the degree that it is.
Always ask someone who talks about bathrooms and gender assignments and all that stuff. Ask them, since you're saying men are going in there because they dress up, put on a skirt and walk in, is there some kind of a lock on public bathroom doors that if you're not wearing a dress, you can't push it open? So if a guy wants to go in and be an assaulter and a rapist, he can do it. It doesn't make any sense. That's just the whole point. Thanks, Burbank, for being on the show today. Appreciate you being here as well. Happy Monday to you. Happy effing Monday. Thank you guys all for joining me as well. Up next, you have the Young Turks, Jank and Anna. Go check them out. We'll see you guys on a Big Tuesday show.